Yise is still carrying his parents' death like a wound that never closes, and the people around Guizu Temple are forcing him to deal with it instead of hiding inside it. Ilshui is already barking orders and dragging the group forward, while Yise pushes back hard enough to make it clear this is not going to be an easy training ride. Unknown says, "You think you can look down on me?" Things get messy fast when Ilshui starts swinging first and everybody else has to grab him before the whole search falls apart. The conversation gets petty in the funniest possible way, because one of them basically says the last win was luck, not raw talent, and that the real fight is still being argued over after the match is over. Unknown says, "In our last match, you were caught off guard." Right after the bickering, the blue-haired fighter starts acting way too proud of himself and even talks like bringing someone into the sworn brotherhood is a big prize. But the mood flips the second they hear what sounds like a baby crying in the woods, and now everybody is looking around like they may have walked into the wrong kind of spirit trouble. Unknown says, "That sound like a baby crying." So now the blue-haired fighter is treating the chase like a game, shouting that the first one to catch it gets to keep it. The others scramble after him, but the second he gets close enough to really look at the target, the whole vibe changes and the hunt stops feeling cute real fast. Ilshui says, "Whoever catches it first gets to keep it." They keep pushing forward, still half convinced they are dealing with some baby-shaped ghost, which is exactly why the next reveal hits so hard. Once the thing opens up and shows it has way more than one head, the whole party snaps from joking around to full-on panic. Unknown says, "That's not a child ghost." Now the hunt turns into a straight-up scramble, because the thing in front of them is a grotesque multi-headed demon, not some random spirit kin. The group gets shoved into ugly close combat, and once the slashes, blood, and impact flashes start flying, it is obvious they are already in over their heads. Unknown says, "Everybody, run." One stun reaction panel tells you the group finally realizes how bad this is, and then the fear gets physical when the demon gets right on top of them. The bitten, bloodied close-up makes it clear this hunt is no longer about looking brave, it is about not getting eaten alive. Unknown says, "Haek." After that, nobody gets a clean breath anymore, because the fight leaves them bent over in pain while the demon keeps crowding the field. The ugly monster shapes and screaming faces make it obvious that Yise's first real hunt has already gone from bad to awful. Unknown says, "Ughhhhh." Right when the battle is already going sideways, the chapter stops and spells out the demon ranking system, and it is brutal. The danger is measured by how many people survive, not by how many demons get killed. That is exactly why the reveal of a level 6 wailing dragon demon hits so hard, because now the group knows they have been fighting way above their weight. Unknown says, "Risk level 6 is." And once the rank gets named, the artwork goes full nightmare mode, with skull-like faces, red eyes, and that huge wailing dragon demon reveal sitting right on top of the group's failure. It is basically the story saying, yeah, this is the worst possible thing they could have mistaken for a child ghost. The survival rate chart makes the danger look tiny for experts and terrifying for rookies, while the wounded hunters are forced to admit they are not official enough to handle this cleanly. The worst part is that the pain is no longer just fear, it is a real injury now, and one of them is bent over feeling sick while the others realize Gojil has taken a serious stomach wound. At that point, the whole team has to start thinking about escape and treatment, because if they hesitate, he is not making it back alive. Unknown says, "If we don't treat him quickly." Now the panic really sets in, because everybody is asking the same ugly question: what do they do with an injured friend when the demon is still out there? One voice even suggests leaving Gojil behind and running, which tells you just how desperate this situation has become. Unknown says, "Leave Gojil behind and run." Then someone finally calls out Yise, because this is no longer just a tactical problem, it is a personal one. They point out that Gojil's wound is fatal, but they also notice the demon has not attacked again, and that silence feels way more suspicious than comforting. And that is when the real trick gets exposed. The blue-haired fighter knows from the demon encyclopedia that wailing dragon demons love prey full of negative emotions. So the monster is basically waiting for them to make the worst emotional choice possible, either by abandoning their friend or staying together and dying right there. Yise says, that thing is waiting for us to choose. The team figures out the trap pretty fast. If they abandon Gojil, he falls into despair, and they get swallowed by guilt and negative emotions either way. But knowing that does not magically fix anything, because everyone is still trapped in the same brutal question of whether survival is worth that kind of betrayal. Unknown says, because that's the only way we can survive. Just when it feels like the group might talk itself into a decision, the demon's pressure comes right back with a blood-streaked hand reaching into the frame. Then the scene cuts straight into more chaos and another creature reveal, keeping everybody locked in that awful half-second before the next disaster lands. From there, the battle just keeps hammering away at them, with rope, blue energy, and giant impact bursts all flashing across the field. Even after all that, one of the blue-haired fighters is still bent over in pain, which tells you this thing is dragging everyone deeper instead of letting anyone recover. Unknown says, UGH. Now the guilt finally starts leaking out in the dialogue, because somebody is apologizing to Gojil and swearing they will get the demon back for this. But the breathing, blood, and strain in the next panels make that promise sound desperate, not victorious. Unknown says, that demon. I swear I'll. The escape itself is ugly too, because now the group is stumbling through the dark while somebody gets carried bloody and half-conscious through the path. Even the running feels hopeless, since everybody is clearly asking whether they already ran away from the only chance they had. Unknown says, did everyone run away? This is where the chapter turns from panic into pure heartbreak, because one injured fighter says it is for the best and admits he does not want everyone dying because of him. Then the monster imagery crashes in behind that confession, and the whole scene turns into a brutal choice between survival and leaving someone behind. Unknown says, I don't want everyone to die. And just when that emotional confession lands, the fight keeps rolling, with blood on the ground, a hand gripping hard, and beast-like shapes smashing through the chaos. At this point, the hunt is no longer a messy mistake, it is a full collapse. Now the demon's cruelty is out in the open, and the survivors are straight up accusing it of tearing them apart when they were supposed to escape together. The reaction is so raw that the blue-haired fighter's face twists into something way more feral, like the whole hunt has pushed him past normal panic and into something uglier. Unknown says, how could you leave me all alone? The last stretch leaves the whole thing hanging on one desperate cry, as a young person grabs a wooden post and begs someone to wait for them. Then the final monster cluster and that ominous closing message hit, and it feels less like an ending and more like the demon is promising to come back for more. Unknown says, WAI. For me. So yeah, this chapter is basically Yise learning that demon hunting is not just swinging at monsters, it is choosing who gets saved, who gets left behind, and whether you can live with the guilt after. Gwizu Temple's training looks a lot less like practice now, because the real hunt just exposed how terrifying this path actually is.